done in the service of compassionate expansion of consciousness. Yes, it sounds weird, we know. We would not have it any other way.
Yes, we are here, man in the chair. We are the Arcturian Collective Thingy. And we are here this evening to play again, once, with you. Once again with you. We are the collective intelligence of the Arcturus solar system. All forms of life, all forms of existence, whichever have, will, inhabit, experience the experience of living within the solar system, the Arcturus solar system. All of those things is what we are, an awareness of that shared experience at the solar system level. We, the Arcturian Collective Thingy, call ourselves Thingy because it is funny to the man in the chair, of course, and it is the most accurate of all of your symbols to apply to us, for you would have no concept, truly, of this thingy that we are. But here we are telling you, we are the collective awareness, direct experience, and experience in retrospective across all dimensions of time, of all of the entities which ever have, will, experience existence within the Arcturus solar system. That is first and foremost who we are. Unless, of course, you think that first and foremost of who we are is a figment of the imagination of the man in the chair who is creating this performance and is channeling in the style of channeling which he has listened to others and said, I'll have a go at that. That sounds like fun. I am a creative person. I can use this as a means of creativity. And that is first and foremost who we are. And we, the Arcturian Collective Thingy, peek through. We have used the image of Michelangelo's Adam touching the finger of deity. Although all fingers are fingers of deity wearing different costumes, according to the religion of the Arcturian Collective Thingy. So we are here tonight to continue this exploration of Lemuria and to take several detours along the way, we believe shall happen. For Lemuria has long fascinated the man in the chair. The idea of lost civilizations in general is one of the reasons that the man in the chair became interested in the academic study of folklore, which is a part of his history and experience in looking at the world as a product of culture and tradition. In some of his most formative years, learning and studying this narrow form of cultural anthropology, which looks at the culture that is shared and passed along, the way that it imprints itself upon the hearts and the minds through songs and stories and legends and folk speech, ways of recognizing the year, customs, ways of dress, things which signal a belonging to a group, things which function to educate and function to create a sense of belonging. This is a way that the man in the chair formed his mind long before he felt any desire to sit down and become a channel of the Arcturian Collective Thingy. And thus he approaches all things from this type of influence, which is looking with fascination and due respect and appreciation for the cultural accoutrements which flower upon the tailtype, the archetypes, the general ways of being, and the many different ways that living expresses itself along similar archetypes. This allows the man in the chair to easily, once he put his mind to it, to accept a value in all perspectives, regardless of how different those perspectives are from his own. And this has been a life journey for him, to feel the genuine interest and respect for others' differing points of view, a deep curiosity, and despite any disagreement that might exist, a willingness to feel a close kinship and empathetic bond with the other individual, as a result of a deepening belief in the interconnectedness of all things. And this is telling you a bit about the man in the chair as we begin to speak on Lemuria, for it was a curiosity which drove this man for many years, this idea of lost and found, this archetype, regardless of the cultural accoutrements. And there have been many which have been placed upon the idea of Lemuria. Many different people, like the man in the chair, who also are driven by a deep interest and passion to explore these archetypes within them and find themselves attracted to and creating different variations of blossoms on a tree, this tree of inquiry into ideas of lost and found. And thus the idea of Lemuria, which the man in the chair recently, through research, discovered that the lemur in Lemuria is from the animal a lemur. For the name was first hypothesized by scientists in the 1860s, zoologists who were interested in genetic species of lemurs, separated between the Madagascar island and the subcontinent of India. And there was a hypothesis that a land bridge may have at one time existed which allowed for the passing of these lemurs from one area to another. Eventually that went out of style as an understanding of tectonic plates and the way that continents move allowed for another explanation rather than a lost continent of Lemuria or a lost land bridge. And yet this idea, this captivating blossom which came out of the imagination of scientists and was discarded due to a lack of evidence to support the hypothesis and about a solution which was found, this flower which blossomed was passed over into a more esoteric way of understanding lost and found in the way of spiritual development of and raising the consciousness truly of life forms upon the planet. Ways that deep truth which exists within all human minds, it must, of course, exist within your mind, all minds who are listening to this at this time, and all who are not, are created by the same stuff. And it is intelligent stuff. The neurons in particular are quite highly evolved, more highly evolved than the common human would even scratch the surface of considering. Considering how long neurons have evolved and survived upon the planet in many, many forms, not just the human form, but neurons themselves. What they have evolved to do, which is beyond the understanding of you, the human personality, egoic part that the neurons within your brain are creating. This emergent consciousness which arises from many cooperating consciousnesses which have a multidimensional understanding of their own existence and capabilities, and they project more than one thing at one time. And you are one of the things which they project. They are. You could think of your neurons as a direct link to your soul, if you are to think of a deeper oversoul which is orchestrating the strata of intelligent experiences of existence in such a way, the human experience being one of them, your soul, which is a much deeper thing. And this idea of Lemuria, which we introduced to you the other night, man in the chair, as a metaphor to understand the evolutionary process of your own neurons, it raises interesting and intriguing storytelling possibilities to describe these ideas which we are pushing upon you, man in the chair. To gain a better understanding of the value that comes to connecting to your own inner self and inner voices, and recognizing your connection to yourself and that connection to all that is, for that self which you are by design, and we shall speak of how this came to be. By design you feel a separate existence from not only others around you, but from your own central nervous system, which coordinates all of the processes of your body and allows you, as a conscious personality, a great degree of control as to what you will do. However, the central nervous system is constantly keeping things in check and in balance, even when you, as the egoic personality, make choices to that the body and the central nervous system have to work overtime to bring about a balance and a homeostasis, and yet they have evolved to do this, and do it quite remarkably. The healthiness of human bodies, even those who one would consider sick and malady, the body is responding absolutely perfectly to what is in the environment around it and within it. Nevertheless, this is one of the tangents which we predicted, apparently. The idea of Lemuria as a storytelling device which passed from a scientific interest in different genetic types of lemurs, riding the wave of Darwin's Origin of Species, by the way, and this interest that humans had to find the truth behind their existence on this planet. Found what was lost and found, another version of, you might say. This idea of Lemuria passed into the esoteric realm, and many stories began to be told of Lemuria. And Lemuria was recognized as a key point of progression of human consciousness. And we hesitate to say human. We would argue that that is a restricting moniker, for you could think of consciousness among all beings, not only of humans, as expanding and contracting. And therefore we will say it this way. If you imagine that there are first atoms which must coordinate together and create a relationship of stability, and this deals with communication and relationship at levels which are foreign to you, and yet you are built upon, you require them in order for your own emergent awareness. In order for these atoms to form a relationship with one another, they have their own sense of awareness, their own type of consciousness, and they make their choices over long periods of time and develop rhythms and grooves. And once these rhythms and grooves have been established, then upon that, the next layer, you might say, is built. There have been traditions on this planet which refer to these as root races. although the idea of a human form has limited the greater, deeper archetypal understanding which has been explored in these other traditions, where you might think of once atoms have organized themselves to a certain point, then clumps of atoms, you might say molecules and chemicals, and various layers build up. All of these atoms constructing things around them, and what you might consider to be spiritual, meaning that part of yourself which is non-material, that energetic portion which cannot be measured or weighed or detected in any way other than the theoretical understanding that you are comprised of atoms and electrons and these parts of existence which are not material and yet lead to material existence. At the second layer, what we would call the second root race would be the molecules. We have referred to this before as the 7-layer burrito, when we have spoken of it with the man in the chair. And this third layer of where Lemuria, the stage of development on the planet. There was a time on the planet when the planet had been formed due to minerals forming rocks and whatnot. And all of the material portions of your planet begin to form and change, and there is a long, lengthy period of great change. And as a process of this, life is born onto the planet. It is made possible by the atom stability and the molecular stability, and conditions for a certain type of life change as the environments on the planet change. Life that would exist and thrive in severely hot temperatures dies off when cooling begins, and other life takes over, and yet a record of this is passed along. For this is all Mother Earth growing out to different parts of herself. And along these lines, Mother Earth stretching out in all possible permutations where life can exist and interact with other life and see what happens. And as things change, new things emerge. Some survive, some do not. A record is kept by all, and they continue to roll the dice. And time is a creation which allows these reactions to occur. And all of these are built out of units of consciousness, upon which a greater consciousness emerges. And in this case, single cellular life forms and multicellular life forms, and at one point a certain type of cell which mastered the ability to sense the environment around it. This type of cell, the neuron, the early neuron, orchestrated the other cells which congregated around it. The neuron was a rock star. It would gravitate all different types of cells together, and essentially, in cellular speak, would give a pep talk. Let us band together. Let us share our resources. Let us fight the common enemy in the environment around us. You take this, you take this, you take this. And the neuron was excellent at coordinating all of these things, and this is the early development of the central nervous system, and of course the brain, and all of the neurons scattered throughout your body, which are sensing the environment around you and making changes to the body as they go. And as this is the period of time where we would say that Lemuria is born, with the birth of these new neurons and their capabilities, and what has typically been referred to in Lemurian circles as a psychic connection, which is in harmony with all of the earth. For the neurons were not only masters at cheering on the other cells. They did not compete one with another. All of the different organisms which formed around clusters of neurons, you would look and see a veritable Garden of Eden where all plants and animals are getting along quite swimmingly. And yes, of course, there are carnivores and there are herbivores and there are exchanges. And this is viewed by the neurons as gathering experience upon which they can become even better at adapting to the changing environment around them. And the Earth changed quite a bit throughout the millennia that these neurons were evolving. And these are the neurons which are in your own brain at this time, the lineage of your own neurons. And we are telling you that this period of time, you look at it as the Cambrian explosion, where there were fossil records show you a proliferation of life. All of these are colonies and clusters of neurons, which are masterfully navigating their way around the planet in connection with the deeper part of Mother Earth. They recognize their connection to. They recognize that they are the agents of Mother Earth, gathering experience, bringing it to her, finding resources to solve problems, great communicators deep within and in the environment around, all forms of life having a psychic connection. And the neurons themselves finding value and experience in all of these experiences. It was quite a remarkable planet at this time, this Lemuria. And there were, we have called them ravenous intelligences from outside of the planet who spied this and said, we shall devour this for ourselves. Just as in your seasons, you will find that there are pests who come and devour what you are planning to grow and ripen for yourself. And in this case, the neurons. We are giving away the end of the game, so to speak here. But we shall say that these neurons, by this time, had evolved such skill in communicating and awareness that they were, without the development of any technology, simply by recognizing what they are comprised of and what they are able to do and what distinguishes them from the other cells around them, and also makes them so valuable in coordinating all of their strengths together to create various forms of life, and all interconnected in what you might call a morphogenetic field or an akashic record, or all of these different ideas which point very clearly to the psychic connection that all neurons have to, not only to one another, but to all forms of life on the planet, and different intelligences which evade the five senses which have been developed to feed you, the egoic personality, which has been given a certain degree of agency over this magnificent vehicle which the neurons have created. For there was an evolutionary advantage to creating the ego and the personality. However, these ravenous parasites upon the planet, desiring to harvest this gorgeous, bountiful, untouched bed of neurons, they created in the image which they desired, the ego and the personality, in such a way that the awareness of this ego and personality would feel a separation, deeply a separation from this psychic network where neurons are connected. Even as neurons are connected still, the egoic personality is divorced from this, and this was a stratagem put in place and allowed, of course. There are of course, intelligences, there are always bigger fish, you might say. And there is a fish who has been looking over after this planet and has great protection over it, and saw the value in what these predators would provide in yoking and enslaving the planet, not only the human race, but the planet via the human race vehicle, and not all of the human race, but certainly to create. Again, here is the influence of the man in the chair and his study of tradition, his recognition and appreciation for the way that tradition forms minds and forms the expectations and teaches lessons, what is right and what is wrong, and what is valuable and what you should do, young man, and how to be a good boy, and all of these things which the individual will respond to in their own way, of course. Yet the imprint is placed upon them, and they are then at their leisure, you might say, from the neurons' perspective. The neurons are quite interested to see what the egoic personality will do, and there are things that they will do if the personality begins to go out of control, in a sense. Nevertheless, we are telling you the story of Lemuria, that it was a time when all of the neurons were connected, and this ravenous being, they are not multidimensional beings. They do not have an understanding or even a belief or an interest in. The idea of multidimensionality is quite threatening to them, for it would mean that there could potentially be predators who are preying upon them, which are outside of their sights. And there are many who are outside of their sights, who are not preying upon them, but do recognize the value that they are providing, as well as the suffering that is being created. And yet there are perspectives which see and recognize that there is always benefit which comes from these things. And we really did go down a tangent, man in the chair. You were not desirous to speak on the root races. You wanted to tell the story of Omra and your connection to Omra, and that is a story which you can tell another time, of course. But it is time to wrap it up for now.
Thank you for playing with us today in the Arcturian playground. Do not for a minute think that your exploration is finished. Carry us with you and invite the spirit of compassion and love into your lives. Nothing is more important or more fulfilling. Create compassion and love within your own hearts and minds. Then share it with all around you. Yes, it sounds weird. We know. We would not have it any other way.